Welcome back. Breaking news on the war between Russia and Ukraine. A U.S. official tells CBS News that Ukraine has agreed to a U.S.-backed peace proposal with only minor details left to sort out. The specifics, though, are still unclear. But we are learning President Volodymyr Zelensky could travel to the United States for final touches as early as this week. I want to bring in Robert Murrett, Deputy Director of the Syracuse University Institute for Security Policy and Law. Robert, thank you for joining us on 24/7 today. With Ukraine apparently in agreement, what do you think it will take for Russia to sign off on this proposal?
And that is probably the most important question we have at this point. It's really encouraging based on what's happened in Geneva and also in Abu Dhabi just in the last several days. However, what the Kremlin has to say about it after the agreement that apparently has been reached between the United States and Ukraine will be absolutely critical. So look forward to get some word on that here, hopefully in the next few days. And what, as you know, is a fast-moving story.
Yeah, and what are the biggest challenges in getting this deal done, given how the terms differ from what was proposed during, I should say, the Trump and Putin summit just a few months ago?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of key elements. The biggest one, of course, is security guarantees, as you know, for the Ukrainians, and also a couple other of the things pertaining to territory and what the front lines would look like, especially for Donetsk, that one part of the so-called the Donbass, which is not occupied by the Russians yet. They seem to be agreeing to the current forward lines they've got in the other two provinces, Kherson and Zaporizhia, so that part of the geography looks fairly straightforward. But I think the big resistance that'll probably come out of the Kremlin will have to do with some of what they always describe as the underlying conditions, which is security guarantees for Ukraine, but some way precluding them from joining the NATO alliance, and also some ambiguous language regarding their joining the European Union.
Yeah. And Robert, as we said, we know a U.S. official says that Ukraine has agreed to this peace proposal. But from your experience, your expertise, what do you think will happen if Russia says no?
I think hopefully it would result in some additional pressure from the European partners and also the United States and Canada, which has been very straightforward. And we would have to have an understanding among all of us that we needed to continue to have significant pressure on the Kremlin leadership to somehow force them to the table and have an agreement that would be acceptable to the key stakeholders, all the key stakeholders, not in the least the Ukrainians, but also the European nations and the North American stakeholders for carrying this forward and having a lasting peace agreement that's actually going to stand the test of time.
And we know Russia has seen a lot of casualties in this war as well. I think it's important to mention that. And yet we know President Vladimir Putin has just continued to go on and has refused basically to come to the table to speak with President Zelensky. Do you think there's any amount of pressure at this point that could be put on Russia? You think of it, the nation has seen a lot of sanctions so far, and that hasn't made a difference.
Yeah, just, kind of step back, and that's a great point. I mean, Russia has a lot of problems, and they certainly have a tolerance for high casualties. Thousands and thousands are killed in action on a regular basis, which Western countries and also Ukraine would not tolerate. And just, the economic, demographic, social problems that Russia has. So I don't think there's any question that any reasonable person would conclude it would be very much in their interest and not be an international pariah anymore, and to end this conflict so they could rejoin the family of nations for the good of their own people. However, the Kremlin leadership just has this thing about Ukraine, and hopefully they'll be able to come off that, and additional pressure, if we can put it on them, will hopefully achieve that result.
Yeah. Robert Murrett, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your insight.